This protocol that I'm about to show you obliterated my shame cycle in seconds. So if you keep getting anxious, you keep getting triggered, and worst of all, you keep criticizing and beating up on yourself for days after, even weeks, and you end up in this downward shame spiral, then you're in the right place, because in this video, I'm gonna teach you how to break out of that cycle fast. And by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly how to implement and use this protocol in your day-to-day life. So let's get into this right now. And just before we get into it, I wanna introduce myself. So I'm Rubin Naidu. I'm a transformational coach specializing in social anxiety and self-esteem. And a big part of the work I do is helping you break this pattern or this shame spiral that you get into. So if you need some extra support, there's a link below the video to speak with me directly if you do need my help. Now, before we get into the protocol, I just want to help you understand something that's so important, okay? You get anxious, for sure. I'm not minimizing that one bit, and it's torture. I get it. You go into a social situation, you're completely in your head, and then maybe you're in a group situation and you get put on the spot. People see how anxious and nervous you are. It feels like you're this zoo animal on display where all your physical symptoms, everybody's seeing you in this vulnerable spot. I get how debilitating that can be. But what's even more debilitating is you beating up on yourself for getting anxious in the first place, and that is the shame. So as if the social anxiety isn't torturous enough, now you have this voice in your head that's absolutely pulverizing you, beating you down, criticizing you. What is wrong with you? Why can't you be normal? Why can't you do what other people do without any effort at all? Like, is there something wrong with you? And because this critical voice is so overwhelming, it's so loud, it'll set you on this path to get instant relief from it. And what is the first thing that your mind is going to think of a solution is being more expressive. If I can just be more expressive, if I could just be more confident in front of people, then this voice will be a little bit quiet. I won't have to feel like this anymore. And I know I'm asking for a lot here. You might be getting skeptical. I would be too, and I was, okay? But you might have heard of this sentiment, and we can take this outside of social anxiety. You don't chase success directly. You focus on helping people through the work you do in your career, and the success is a byproduct. Another example of this is you don't chase happiness. You don't focus on happiness. You set meaningful goals and you lose yourself so much in the process, and you have so much fun that you feel happy. So once again, the happiness is a byproduct. And what I'm suggesting to you, to please take this in, is you don't become expressive by focusing on being expressive. You focus on actually liking yourself, liking who you are as an individual on a deep, deep core level. Looking in the mirror and feeling a sense of pride of who you are and who you've become. And when you have this, you will be expressive, and not only expressive, it'll be the steady confidence and expressiveness that never wavers. So for example, you might hear about the overnight success. Oh, it's gone. Oh, I'm in a relationship, I'm happy. Oh, relationship went to shit. Oh, now I'm not happy anymore. And your expressiveness can be like that as well. So I'm gonna walk you through this protocol now that's gonna help you develop that steady, authentic expression that's built upon rock solid self-esteem, not the type of expression that is a form of overcompensating because of a lack of self-esteem. Okay, so let's get into this right now. Okay, so here we are at the protocol. So inside my program, we call it a recovery protocol, because you can probably connect the dots here. Once you go into that downward spiral of shame, it's all about recovery. And this last one down here, it's going to be a really good one. I want you to stay for that one, because the last one that we're going to do is you get anxious, and then after you leave the conversations and you're in that shame spiral, you have to recover. The last one is going to help you minimize when that happens within a conversation, and within a conversation or the social interaction itself, how to start implementing this in real time. Okay. So we have the recovery protocol. You'll also see there's 4 different columns here. So what I want you to do is go get yourself a sheet of paper. You can also use a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet, and write yourself down 4 columns. And in these columns, you're going to note they say things I cannot control. These are going to sound really interesting at first. How I try to control, things I can control, and actions I will take. I'm going to explain each and every one of these. Okay. Before I do that, what I want you to understand about shame. Shame results from the experiences that you've been through in life, the wounds that you have been through, that you've experienced, and that you're carrying with you still. And during those experiences, bullying, rough parenting, abuse, whatever the case was, you took on this narrative on the inside that there's something broken about you, right? That you're not like other people and you're different than other people, and there's something about you. There's something wrong with you, right? This feeling, this shame on the inside. That happens through your childhood wounding, your childhood programming, sometimes the teenage years, etc. What happens though is during those times, it wasn't your fault. Okay. I want you to understand this, and I want you to really take in what I'm saying to you here. It wasn't your fault. Okay. You have to be gentle with yourself. It wasn't your fault. Okay. But the nature of shame, once that seed is planted within you, I have this saying that victims always become perpetrators. So when you were a child, you were a victim of these things that happened, and you internalize these beliefs and these internal feelings like you're inferior to other people, you're not like other people, right? And then what happens is your self-image gets distorted. And because your self-image gets distorted, you have to act in alignment with that self-image. So if you truly believe on the inside, you have a true feeling like you're broken or like there's something wrong with you on the inside, you have to act in alignment with that. That's how human behavior works. And when you act in alignment with what that voice is telling you on the inside or trying to convince you of, you will end up perpetuating your own shame. You will act in ways that you are not proud of. And it all comes down to this, what I have here, control, or the illusion of it. Let me give you a really quick story here, because there's this column. It says things I cannot control. And you might be saying to yourself what I used to say to myself. And I was like, I'm chill. Like, I'm not controlling at all. I don't try to tell people what to do. They can do whatever they want. I don't care. I'm not controlling. Well, if you weren't controlling, and I'm going to explain this to you. If you didn't have issues with control, you wouldn't be watching this video. You wouldn't even be drawn to my content. Okay. So let me explain it this way. I'm going to explain it to you through this vivid story. When I was about 8 years old, my teacher, it was parent student, what do you call that thing? Parent teacher interviews. Okay. And this teacher, he said to my dad, he said, Rubin's hanging out with these quote unquote bad kids and they're just goofing around. And he said, Rubin's actually really naturally smart. Like, why don't you talk to him? And, if he just puts in a little bit of effort, he could really excel. He could really pick up his grades. Because I don't know what my grades were. Maybe like C's, B's, who knows, right? And so my dad came and talked to me. And I remember I put in some more effort and I wrote this test. I got an A, right? And I looked at the A. I couldn't believe it. I was so proud. I was so happy. And I remember I couldn't wait to go show my dad the grade. And then I remember handing him the piece of paper. He's sitting on the couch, right? He's having his tea or whatever after work. He's sitting on the couch and he takes the paper and he looks at it and he goes like this, no reaction. He just goes like this. And then he looks at me and he goes, why isn't it an A plus? And in that moment, oh, I could feel like the shame punching me in the gut. The feeling like there was this thing inside me that kind of set me off in that moment. It was like, nothing I ever do is going to be good enough. Therefore, what's the underlying belief? I'm not good enough. Therefore, I'm not enough. So do you see the seed of shame being planted within me? So what does this have to do with control? Well, if you think about it, parent, child, I mean, the child really has zero control. The parent has all the control. And in that situation in particular, I just wanted the acceptance and approval and admiration of my father so bad. And you can see how much power he truly had. How much power he truly had that could break my spirit on the inside, that could really damage my self-esteem, which it did, right? Now, why I'm saying this to you, though, is that you're an adult now. You're not a child. And by you placing so much importance on the approval, admiration, acceptance of your friends, your coworkers, your boss, right? All these people in your life, is you are just like my dad was positioned as a person in power, right? Parent, child, superior, inferior. By you placing so much importance on the approval, admiration, and acceptance of other people, you are positioning yourself as inferior. And that's what shame does. So the more you try to control, the more other people control you from a position of being superior. And this is why it's so important to break this spiral. So I really hope that you're taking this in right now, okay? So let's get into this here. So we're gonna take a look at this first row here, and then we're gonna go through each column, okay? So things I cannot control. Very clear. And I want you to add different rows to this, okay? Don't only put what I have here. I'm just starting you off, but be creative, use your creativity, come up with your own as well, okay? But these are very important. So I wanted to start you off with these is what other people think of me. You can't control that, right? You're in, for example, you're outside of the conversation. It happened. It's in the past. You can't control the past, right? You can't control what other people think of you. But how do you try to control? How do your deeds, your actions make it so that you do care? Well, you ruminate, for example, on the past conversation over and over again. Get into the cycle. Ruminating and over what they said, what it could have meant, what you could have said better, this mistake you meant, beating up on yourself. And that's how you control. So you can see just by virtue of staying in that state of shame, you're starting to position yourself as inferior to the other person. And you're placing so much status on their opinion of you, and you're putting it on a pedestal. You can't control it. There's a saying, there's 1,000 reasons people do what they do, and 999 of them have nothing to do with you. Okay. So what we want to do now is we want to shift out of that shame, and it has to be reflected in your actions. This is not just about thinking a little more positive about it. Your energy has to shift, and your efforts and what you put your energy into, is specifically your actions, have to change, because they're going to be completely different. Somebody who's perpetuating their shame and somebody who's breaking the cycle and acting in a way where they actually like themselves two completely different actions, two completely different paths. Okay. So, what you actually can control is the shame that got triggered up, right? We have tools in our program. Obviously, we have really deep emotional regulation techniques and these different things that we teach. But for you, what are the tools for you specifically? You can't control what other people think. You can't control the past conversation. It's in the past. But you're feeling a lot of shame. You're beating up on yourself. You're feeling like there's something wrong with you, right? That's shame. It's a feeling. It's an experience within you. You do have control over your thinking and your feeling and your perspective. That is one thing that nobody can take from you. Okay. So, what I want to ask you, look at this next column here, is the actions I will take, is what are you going to do about what you actually have control over? Okay. Process the shame. Remember, nervous system tools, regulation tools. Sometimes it's really hard to get out of your head and you need to talk to somebody about it, but you can't self-regulate. So that's a really important thing there. And to give you an example here, when our students, they start processing through the shame, so they can sit with so much courage. It takes so much courage to actually look inward and start to move through the shame, not around it, not over it, under it, to get around it and to pretend it's not there, but moving through the shame with their utmost courage. They process through it. Oftentimes, their actions will shift from ruminating on past conversations, right? Okay, I'm ruminating. I got to fix this mistake. So now I'm going to go on YouTube and see how to improve myself, right? And it feels like you're being productive. It feels like instant relief, that instant gratification. Oh, okay. You know what? I just got to say this line and then I got to just do this and I got to practice my eye contact and this and this and this. But what's underneath that whole behavior of going down this YouTube rabbit hole? It's trying to fix yourself, isn't it? So remember, I said you're perpetuating your own shame. And so if you think about it this way, maybe you're in a social interaction for, it's not that long oftentimes, right? Maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a couple hours, but how are you treating yourself for the hours, the days, and the weeks after the fact? That's going to truly dictate your self-expression. So we'll have students who save themselves like 5-6 hours a week because they're doing so much of this self-help, self-improvement stuff to, you know what, I'm gonna call that friend of mine who I feel like I can really share and deepen a connection with. Or I'm going to go do something fun for myself, something that I actually want to do. I'm going to go do something creative, something that's fulfilling my soul. So you see the big distinction there, or the big difference between the behavior of perpetuating your shame, and oftentimes self-improvement can be a disguise, shame in disguise. So be very careful there, okay? Let's take a look at the next row here. Other people's actions. So for example, let's say you're dating, right? You go on a date and you think it went really well, right? And then maybe you send a little text message after, a little follow-up, see if you're going to see each other again, and you're not getting any responses, right? Day goes by, 2 days goes by, and what happens is you start to worry. Okay? But let's go back here. To the things you cannot control, other people's actions. You can't control if they saw their text messages, if they were checking their phone, if they actually want to see you again. You can't control when they're going to respond. Okay. And so, because you want to control that, and because again, you've made this date like your God, right? This date is your God. You've made them God. And now, because you've made them God and you have them on such a high pedestal, your whole future, it's like your whole future depends on their response. So how do you try to control it? Worry. Okay, Now I'm going to try to analyze, how did the day go? Okay, well, there was this moment where it kind of went a little bit sideways, but I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it. You start analyzing, you start worrying, then you start assuming the meaning. Well, if they haven't responded in 2 days, geez, man, they're not interested in me. Man, why am I always the guy that's in the friend zone, gets rejected, and nobody wants me, blah, blah, blah. And so you'll get into this worried state. And again, you're trying to control an outcome and positioning yourself as inferior. Okay. The shame is telling you to think, feel, and do something, and you're acting and doing exactly what it's telling you to do. Let's break the cycle. Okay. What do you actually have control over? You have control over your feelings of rejection. That's what you're feeling on the inside. You're feeling rejected, right? And maybe you went on a couple of dates or a few dates, and you thought things were going really well, and then they pulled away all of a sudden. Maybe it has to do with abandonment. Maybe you're feeling really abandoned. Maybe you're feeling really alone on the inside. Those are the feelings, remember, that you actually have control over. And so over here, what are you going to do about the things that you actually have control over? Remember, your energy and your efforts need to go in that direction. You need to move into action into these other areas of your life. So yes, you can process through the rejection depending on the tools you have at the moment. Okay. You can work on lowering the importance that you're placing on that romantic interest, right? Maybe it's through conversations with other people who have been through this road before. And another thing that you can do to really lower that importance is, what you can do is develop so many areas of satisfaction and deep satisfaction in your life. So, for example, you develop your social circle, you develop your friendships. I got such good friends and relationships that this doesn't hurt as bad. Or I'm making so much advancement in my career, right? I got so many opportunities coming up, and I'm doing such a great job at work. I'm mastering my craft that this doesn't hurt as bad. That's a little different than if you're sitting at home by yourself every single day, every night, and you don't do anything in your life besides go through the motions and go to work, come home, you're by yourself, don't connect with anybody. So you can see that would hurt, or that would hit a lot deeper than if you didn't develop these other areas of satisfaction in your life. Okay. And again, if you're finding it really hard to get out of your head on your own, shame is like that. Sometimes it's really hard to break the cycle on your own. So again, book that call below the video, and I'd love to be able to explore this with you. So let's go down to this next one, which is where I'm at in life. This is a big one, right? So where I'm at in life, and you'll try to control it, right? The comparison. You end up in that shame spiral, and then you start comparing yourself to others. You start worrying about the future, ruminating about the past. Oh, because my past was like this, and everybody's moving forward. You see all your friends moving on. They're in relationships, getting married, having kids, moving on with their life. They got the social life. They got all of these different things happening, the career advancement. They got it all, or it seems as so on the outside, as you compare your insides to everybody's outsides, right? But what you're not understanding, and actually let me get into this first here, is that's how you try to control, is comparing yourself and trying to come up with the reasons that you can't be like other people, and the reasons that there's something wrong with you. Look, they have this and they have this and they have this. And because your brain has somewhat figured it out, it helps you feel a little bit okay, right? But again, look at what you've done by comparing your insides to everybody's outsides. Again, you're positioning yourself as somebody who's inferior. And your whole goal is just to be normal, right? It's just to connect with other people as an equal. Trust me, I remember when that was my only goal in life, was to be normal. And what you actually have control over, things I can control, your self-image. So how you actually feel about yourself. The insecurities that you have on the inside, are you actually working on them? Maybe it's the way you look. Maybe it's you're not happy about how far you all are along in your career. Maybe you're not happy with the amount of friends you have. Are you truly working on those things? The other thing is your level of self acceptance. Because when you're constantly comparing yourself to others, right? And it feels like you wish you could have their lives. Why can't I just have that life? Why can't my life be that easy? Right? Why can't I be confident or whatever like that? And until you have a certain level of self acceptance, but that's not going to happen until you take an inventory, meaning until you take an inventory on and examine your past and how the different experiences have impacted you in a way that your mind is in denial about. It doesn't want to admit to you that these things are still impacting you. It wants to shut this stuff out, bury it away, store it away. That's what our minds are good at. And just blame you and just try to tell you that it's just the way you are and there's just something wrong with you. And you're inadequate, you're defective, you're broken, you're this, you're that. And so this examination of your past, you can take this inventory, is something you can control, actions you will take. And so this healing work over here is you can do such a deep examination of your past, and you will see on such a deep level how much your programming, your childhood programming, has impacted the way you show up. And when you do that enough, and when you do it on a deep enough level, you will get to the place in your life where you would never have anybody else's life except your own. The more you see other people doing well, the more you just want to live your own life and thrive within your own life and get more into the life right in front of your face. Another thing is your reward system, right? Let's say you don't feel good enough, and you don't feel good enough, and your mind's trying to tell you it's because other people have this and other people have that. But when's the last time that you actually rewarded yourself? You're doing some good work out there. Have you rewarded yourself for doing such deep work on yourself? For working on your self-esteem, for working on your mental health, for showing up in life the way that you do? When was the last time you rewarded yourself? Going back to my story with my dad, when I remember I took on these beliefs like, I'm never going to be good enough. Well, I had to start acting in that way. So no matter what I achieved in life, whether it was through sports, through school, through career, through business, I would never reward myself. I would never celebrate myself. So it was me that was perpetuating that shame. It was me that was perpetuating it by what? Waiting for one day for mommy and daddy to celebrate me or other people to celebrate me when I had control over it. The actions I could have took were taking those moments to really celebrate myself and reward myself for the little things I was doing along the way. And you have control over this too. Now, this last one that we're going to do is the flow of a conversation. And this is a very important one. Okay. So I want you to listen very closely on this one. And let's take this up a little bit here. So what you cannot control, the flow of a conversation. Maybe you're hanging out in a group. It's wild, right? Someone says something over here. There's a bunch of opinions over here, energy over here, energy over there. It's all over the place, right? So you can't control it. You can't control the flow of a conversation. You can't control all the time the way it's going to go, no matter what those pickup artists tell you. You can't control the frame, okay? Because again, remember, if you're trying so hard to control, you're positioning yourself as someone who's inferior and is trying to overcompensate by trying to be superior, right? So one example of, again, how you try to control here, thinking of what to say next. We all know this one, right? Thinking of what to say next, thinking of the next lines. Okay, I got to say something. I got to say something. Avoid the silence. Just avoid the silence. You can't control the flow of a conversation, and you can't control whether that person likes you or not. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with their life experience and their belief systems that have resulted from that life experience. Okay. But what do have control over is your emotional state. Are you able to regulate your nervous system within the moment? Are you able to process your feelings that come up in the moment? Are you able to clear up enough mental space to be able to respond to what the other person is saying? And so that's your emotional state. So another thing that you can work on is your feelings of value, right? You might have be walking around with this opinion like nothing I have to say is important. I'm not deserving enough to take up space and give my opinions and assert myself, right? Those are things that you can work on. That's what you actually have control over, and your capacity to listen. So this next one, this capacity to listen, let's go over here to the actions you can take because it's so important. So the cultivation of self-esteem, that's like your feelings of value. You can work on that. And those are the steps that you can take to cultivate your self-esteem. Now, your capacity to listen and your emotional state, let's talk about this here because I want you to listen to this very closely. We have this protocol. It's like a mini protocol within this recovery protocol. It's called SLL, speak, listen, or leave. So the next time you are in a conversation, I want you to either speak, listen, or leave. Why do I say that? Because if you're not speaking, you need to be listening. And you're like, yeah, I get it. Obviously, no shit, Rubin. But it's very important to understand, if you're a part of this community, that a lot of us have this tendency to dissociate. So you're in a conversation and you're in your head, and sometimes you're confused and disoriented, and you're thinking of what to say next because you've dissociated and you've disconnected from yourself. Or sometimes you're so in your head, you're so nervous, you're so frightened by what the other person might be thinking or feeling about you that you're in your head. But in those moments, are you listening? You're not listening, and you're not speaking. So why are you, I don't want this to sound too harsh, but why are you in the conversation then? Why are you in a space with somebody else where you are completely non-functional? Okay. I want you to understand this, that is dangerous territory. And I want you to start taking better care of yourself. The usual mainstream advice would be to push through, push through, push through. I get it. Try to work on your emotional state. You can do all of those things. But if there comes a point where you're starting to feel like it's just too overwhelming, you're too in your head, you're not speaking, you're not listening, I want you to give yourself permission to leave, and the sooner the better. The reason this reprogramming of your behaviors in your mind in that moment is so important is because the reason that you have all of this anxiety is because of those experiences where you weren't allowed to leave. You had to stay and take the bullying. You had to stay and be put on the spot by the teacher. You had to stay and be shamed by your critical parent. You had to stay and endure the abuse from your abuser. Okay? This is your opportunity. It seems like something so little, but this is your opportunity to take your power back and change the narrative. Okay. So I want you to, this is what you absolutely have control over. If you're older now, if you're an adult, leave. you have permission to leave. You can always leave now. And when you always know that you can leave a conversation, you won't actually feel so much pressure while you're in the conversation because you know that you can leave. And obviously there's exceptions where maybe you're giving a presentation at work, you can't get out of a work meeting, something like that. But as much as you can, I want you to implement this as much as possible. And then when you leave, again, you just go up and then you work on the recovery protocol when you're outside of that social situation. And if you're feeling like those shame spirals, they're way too intense, they're way overwhelming, whatever you do, you just can't get out of them on your own, then I would love to be able to connect with you and support you with this. This is the work I do specifically in my coaching and my programs, and I help individuals who are really angry and frustrating and beating up on themselves because of their inexpressiveness, their anxiousness, and their timidness when speaking to people. So if that sounds like you, I'd love to be able to talk to you and see what's possible for you so that instead of beating up on yourself, you can be proud of yourself when you look in the mirror because you can express yourself with confidence, assertiveness, and your full authenticity. And if you want to learn more about how healing this shame cycle fits into the transformation that you're trying to make, check out this masterclass. In this masterclass, I take you through my entire framework for reducing your levels of social anxiety and increasing your levels of self-esteem and self-expression. So make sure you check that out next. I hope you are feeling a lot lighter. I hope you are feeling more understood. And I hope you are becoming more proud of who you are. Take care of yourself, and I will see you soon.